Hi, my name is Amber, and this is my presentation on developmental theories for EDLC 704. The fictional student's name is Sasha. She is a 12-year-old girl who's in the 7th grade. Sasha is the older sister of one sibling, and she lived with both her parents until the summer before 7th grade when her father moved out due to her parents separating. Both of the parents work full-time jobs, and she would be considered to be from a middle-class family. She spends the weekends at her father's house along with her younger brother. Her father moved to a home that's only a few miles away from her mother's house, and she's able to visit during weekdays when his job and her other time commitments allow. Sasha's family was very close up until the separation and often spent dedicated time together, including family dinners, game nights, all birthdays and holidays. Sasha's family does not attend church, but they do believe in God, and they hold generally Christian views of religion. Sasha participates in gymnastics outside of school, and she's been doing so since she was very young. She spends several days a week at practice and has gymnastics events at least once a month every weekend. She's a skilled gymnast, she's very passionate about it, and she has strong bonds with her teammates. Her academic performance. Sasha's generally been a good student in past years, and her academic performance was always at or above grade level during elementary school. At the start of middle school, her academic performance was at least at grade level for all of her classes. In science, her academic performance was above grade level. Beginning midway through her 6th grade year, her grades began declining in several of her classes, including science, and she began failing English in the latter half of 6th grade, and ultimately required additional resource sessions and extended deadlines to obtain a passing grade. At the beginning of 7th grade, Sasha appeared to be performing better academically than she was at the end of 6th, but by the time first quarter report cards came out, she had C's in most of her classes, including her favorite science. She was again failing English class, and now that she is halfway through the 2nd quarter, she has managed to bring several grades up to B's, but she's still failing and having trouble in English. Sasha has good critical thinking and analyzing skills and an excellent ability to memorize information. She demonstrates leadership qualities among her classmates and peers, and she likes to help her teachers with tasks. She is independent, well-behaved, and typically confident. She is a kind and caring student who tries to be nice to everyone. She has great school attendance and is rarely tardy to class. She likes math and loves and is excelling at science. While Sasha is an intelligent student and appears to be a capable reader, reading comprehension can be difficult for her, along with other reading tasks. She also appears to be struggling with writing activities and tasks, according to her teacher. Sasha has never liked English, but this year has been especially hard because she says she does not like the books they read and feels the overall class is boring and not needed. Sasha can have difficulties following through with her commitments, often procrastinates schoolwork until last minute, and struggles to manage her time effectively. Sasha is intelligent, strong-willed, outgoing, and independent. She's always been able to make friends easily, thrives in social situations, and is often considered a leader among her friends and teammates. She's a good listener and problem solver, so her friends often come to her for advice and help. She's been bullied in the past, so she's always careful to be considerate of others and respectful of diversity. She is a genuinely kind student who has empathy for others and tries to get along with everyone. Teachers often commend her for her ability to be a good role model. Sasha's school trouble started when her parents began having marital issues, and their separation was especially hard on her. She attended counseling over the summer immediately following their separation and maintains monthly visits with her counselor. Despite the initial withdrawal after the separation, she has since resumed her usual routine, such as spending time with friends, and has seemed to settle into new normal with her weekdays at mom's and weekends at dad's. She has become even more focused on her gymnastics, dedicates more time to practicing, and has set higher goals and expectations for herself. I'm going to be discussing two developmental theories for this presentation, Jean Piaget's theory of cognitive development and Lev Vygotsky's sociocultural theory of cognitive development. Piaget's theory of cognitive development is based on the idea that children construct a mental model of the world through a series of developmental stages. Piaget's theory emphasizes that children are not passive recipients of information, but active participants in their own cognitive development. According to Piaget, there are 4 stages of cognitive development, and children reach these stages at certain ages. His theory also includes important concepts about how children acquire knowledge. Stages of development. The sensorimotor stage, which is from birth to about age 2. During this stage, infants learn about the world through their senses and actions. Key milestones during this phase are object permanence, which is the understanding that objects continue to exist even when they cannot be seen, heard, or touched. The pre-operational stage is from ages 2 to 7 years. During this stage, children begin to use language and think symbolically, but their thinking is still intuitive and egocentric. Egocentrism is a key feature of this stage, and it is the difficulty in seeing things from the perspectives other than their own. Another key feature of this stage is animism, which is where life is attributed to inanimate objects. The concrete operational stage is 7 to 11 years old. During this stage, children start to think logically about concrete events. They gain better understanding of the concept of conservation, which is the realization that quantity does not change despite changes in shape or appearance. They also have key features within the stage, which are the logical thinking about concrete objects, an understanding of reversibility, and the ability to classify objects into different sets. The formal operational stage is 12 years and up, and adolescents develop the ability to think about abstract concepts. They can reason logically, systematically, and hypothetically. Abstract thinking, problem solving, and hypothetical deductive reasoning are the key features of this stage of development. Important concepts of Piaget's theory. Cognitive development refers to increasing the number or complexity of schema. Operation allows schemas to be combined in a logical way. Operations are learned through interactions with environment and people. As children grow, they carry out more complex operations. A schema is a mental structure or framework that organize and interpret information. They are the building blocks of knowledge. As children grow, their schemas become more complex and sophisticated. Assimilation and accommodation is another concept. Assimilation involves integrating new information into existing schemas. For example, a child who knows what a dog is might initially call all 4-legged animals dogs. Accommodation is the process of modifying existing schemas or creating new ones in response to new information. For example, when a child learns that a cat is not a dog, they adjust their schema to differentiate between dogs and cats. Equilibration, this is the process of balancing assimilation and accommodation to create stable understanding. When children encounter new information that doesn't fit their existing schemas, disequilibrium occurs, and they are motivated to restore balance through accommodation. How children learn according to Piaget's theory. A child has pre-existing knowledge. This is called their schema. For example, a child has a pet cat, so they know what a cat looks like. Let's say they then go to the zoo and see a tiger. Because they have existing knowledge of a cat, they can associate the animal with a cat. When they do, someone around them corrects them, letting them know it's a tiger. This is assimilation. Then they learn something new, and now accommodation has occurred because the child knows there's a different type of cat called a tiger. The child has accommodated what he already knew to form a new understanding or schema. Disequilibrium occurs when something doesn't make sense or the child cannot make sense of what they are seeing and experiencing. When the child saw a new animal, disequilibrium occurred. To try and achieve equilibrium, they associated it with what you knew, a cat, and then accommodated it. Vygotsky's sociocultural theory of cognitive development he believed that there was a fundamental role that social interaction and cultural context play in the development of cognition. Unlike Piaget, who focused on stages of development driven by individual discovery, Vygotsky believed that community and language play a central role in making meaning. While he did share Piaget's belief that young children are curious and actively involved in their own learning, he also believed that cognitive development was largely a result of social interactions. He argued that children learn through guided participation and collaborative dialogue with more knowledgeable others, such as parents, teachers, and peers. Collaborative dialogue is a process where a child has social interactions with a skilled tutor or more knowledgeable other, and the tutor models the behaviors or gives verbal instructions to the child. The child internalizes the information received from a collaborative dialogue and uses it to guide or regulate their thinking and/or actions. One important concept of Vygotsky's theory is the zone of proximal development. This refers to the range of tasks that a child can perform with the help and guidance of others, but cannot yet perform independently. The zone of proximal development focuses on the area where there is the potential for cognitive development, indicating what a child can achieve with proper support. Learning occurs when the information to be learned falls within their ZPD. They don't have to be taught what they already know, and some stuff might be too difficult to learn because they don't yet have the existing knowledge needed to make sense of it. But anything that a student has pre-existing knowledge and thinking skills for that they could learn if they had help falls in their zone of proximal development. Important concepts related to Vygotsky's theory. He believed that children are born with elementary mental functions. Up until about age 2, those are developing, and through interactions with socio-cultural environment, they are developed into more sophisticated and effective mental processes in what Vygotsky called higher mental functions. Elementary functions include attention, sensation, perception, and memory. Cultural tools is a super important concept, and basically it says that learning is impacted by the culture, and every culture provides its children with tools of intellectual adaptations that allows them to use basic mental functions more effectively. Tools of intellectual adaptation refers to the methods of thinking and problem solving that children internalize through social interactions with more knowledgeable others. Vygotsky believed that cognitive function, even those that we carry out alone, are affected by the beliefs, values, and tools of intellectual adaptation of the culture in which the person develops. For example, earlier societies used the abacus to help learn and perform math functions, whereas later societies developed calculators, and further down the road, computers, which allowed them to perform more advanced math functions. These cultural tools shape the types of math strategies and skills learned, and they even influenced what other knowledge was available to be learned. Scaffolding refers to the processes where an adult begins with direct instruction, but as the child gains mastery of the skill, the adult recognizes the child's improved skill and tends to reduce their contributions. For learning to occur, scaffolding takes place within a child's zone of proximal development. And language. Vygotsky believed that language develops from social interactions for communication purposes, and viewed language as a person's greatest tool for communicating with the outside world. While Piaget also saw language as a tool for communication, Vygotsky saw it differently and believed that it played a very critical role in cognitive development. And looking at Vygotsky's role of language, he saw or felt that there were two critical roles played by language. The first being in that language is the way that adults transmit information to children, and the second is that language itself becomes a powerful tool for developing intellect. He identified 3 forms of language: social speech, which is the external communication used to talk with others, which happens at about age 2; private speech, which begins around age 3 and was talking that was directed to oneself and served as an intellectual function. And the third is private speech goes underground. This occurs at about age 7, and this is where a child's talking diminishes in audibility as it takes on a self-regulating function and it is transformed into silent inner speech. Vygotsky's theory is based on the position that thought and language are separate systems when we are born, and sometime around the age of 3, they merge together, becoming interdependent. Thought becomes verbal and speech becomes representational. As children develop mental representations, specifically language skills, they begin to communicate with themselves the same way they communicate with others. And when that happens, their monologues internalize and it becomes their inner speech. Vygotsky said that inner speech, to a large extent, is thinking in pure meanings. Importantly, he believed that internalization of language drove cognitive development. He considered private speech the transition point between social and inner speech and the moment of development where thought and language combine to constitute verbal thinking. He saw it as a developmental milestone where pre-verbal thought and pre-intellectual language come together to create a new form of mental functioning. Children use private speech to collaborate with themselves to achieve a specific function or task. Private speech allows children to plan activities and strategies and self-regulation of behavior. Because it can do these things, it accelerates thinking and understanding. Vygotsky believed that children who use private speech often and in large amounts were more socially competent than those who did not. There are a lot of similarities and difference between the two theories. I'm going to highlight some of the important major differences between the two theories. Piaget believed that cognitive development occurs in developmental stages. Vygotsky believed that cognitive development occurs as a result of social and cultural interactions. For Piaget, cognitive development was biological and occurred at specific ages or age ranges in all children. Children have to reach stages and be able to learn a skill. Vygotsky did not believe in developmental milestones or ages. Instead, he saw learning as a continuous process that differed depending on social and cultural contexts. With Vygotsky's theory, children need information to be in their zone of proximal development to be able to learn. Another difference is Piaget saw that an individual constructs their own knowledge through interactions and experiences, but it's an individual interaction, whereas Vygotsky saw knowledge coming from the interactions with more knowledgeable others. Piaget saw learning as solitary and knowledge coming from independent explorations and interactions, whereas Vygotsky saw learning as social, with children working with others to build their knowledge. Another difference, Piaget saw cognitive development as universal based on biological stages, whereas Vygotsky saw cognitive development as being varied and influenced by social and cultural factors. Piaget saw cognitive development as mostly universal across cultures, where all children gain the same abilities to think or perform complex mental functions at specific ages, whereas Vygotsky viewed cognitive development as being flexible and varied. Social interactions and culture affect cognitive development. Aside from the innate mental functions that we're born with and develop up to about age 2, there is no automatic acquiring of cognitive abilities at stages. Learning for Vygotsky requires sociocultural interactions. Another difference is that for Piaget, language is driven by thought and does not promote thinking or understanding, whereas Vygotsky saw language as driving thought and accelerating thinking or understanding. For Piaget, language played a minimal role in development. Children use language to give labels to their experiences and engage in egocentric speech or talking to themselves, which was really just a reflection of their thinking based on their developmental stage. Vygotsky viewed speech as playing a very important role in development. He saw it as a tool used by parents to give knowledge to their children and that it helped children internalize knowledge. Another difference, Piaget saw peer interactions as being the most important for cognitive development, whereas Vygotsky saw adult interactions as being the more important feature for cognitive development. Piaget believed that children learn together and from each other, and believed that peer interactions promoted development. Peer interactions provide experiences that help children learn through sharing, interacting, engaging, and building knowledge. Sharing experiences, they each build their own individual knowledge. Vygotsky also believed that peer interactions could be beneficial, but he was focused on adult interactions and the interactions of more knowledgeable others in order to give their knowledge to children and help them learn. How can these theories be used to support Sasha? We will first apply Piaget's theory. In using Piaget's theory for Sasha, we would first need to determine what developmental stage she's in. Since she is 12 going on 13, she would be the formal operational stage. Based on what we know about this stage, we know that she can think abstractly and she should be able to perform complex thinking tasks. She would be able to apply learning to real world situations, participate in discussions and debates and problem solving activities, and work both on her own as well as cooperatively with others. Piaget's theory supports the use of individualized instruction since Sasha builds her knowledge through her experiences and interactions. The first step would be to use a variety of formal and informal assessments and observations to determine her strengths and weaknesses. Once her weaknesses are identified, instruction can be tailored to meet her specific needs. For example, if her vocabulary is not as developed as it should be, a teacher could take the time to introduce new words in context and use them in various activities. They could either keep a vocabulary journal and complete graphic organizers with new vocabulary words. It would be important to use a variety of methods to engage Sasha. And if she is struggling with vocabulary knowledge, a teacher would want to make sure to find ways to teach many new words through lots of different experiences. The more experiences she has, the more likely she is to learn. Piaget's theory promotes using concrete, visual, and hands-on materials. These serve as interactions and experiences that make it easier for students to make connections, remember what they learn, and be engaged in active participation. For Sasha, this could be done by using graphic organizers like story maps or Venn diagrams, especially in her English class where she's struggling. She would also benefit from being allowed to read a wider range of material where she can find something that is interesting to her, including movements with learning activities in English would help by forcing Sasha to engage with learning when otherwise she might tune it out because she's bored. Piaget's theory focuses on the assimilation and accommodation processes as a way of gaining and adjusting schema. Scaffolding supports these processes by helping resolve cognitive conflicts. It helps provide the support needed to bridge the gap. Using methods that allow Sasha to construct her own knowledge will help her. This means giving her opportunities to conduct experiments, investigation, and research, solve problems, and think critically. She should be encouraged to ask questions and make connections to broader concepts. In English, inquiry-based learning activities that allow her to ask those questions, investigate, and create her own understanding would help her be engaged and also help her have purpose for reading. She should be encouraged to reflect on her learning, which will help her become more aware of how she learns and provide opportunities to ask more questions, which could promote her interest. She would also benefit from peer interactions and support, as Piaget recommends. This can be done by using group work and cooperative learning activities so that students can share ideas, challenge each other's thinking, and work together to solve problems. This would help Sasha in English, where she's struggling and needs additional support. She's also more likely to be interested in working as a group because she likes social interactions. and applying Vygotsky's theory. Vygotsky believed that learning occurs in the zone of proximal development, so it is important that formal and informal assessments be used in addition to other data gathering means such as observation, looking at past work, report cards, conferences, things of that nature, to assess what falls within Sasha's zone of proximal development. This is where her learning needs to be focused. Since she's intelligent and generally able to meet performance expectations, it's important not to spend a lot of time on things she already knows. This is especially true for English, where she finds the class boring and is already struggling. If the assigned work is too easy, it will contribute to her being bored and not wanting to learn. It's also important to continually reassess her to make sure that instruction and assigned work stays within her zone of proximal development. Scaffolding is directly related to the zone of proximal development and involves giving students the temporary support that helps them learn tasks and then gradually withdrawing the support as they gain independence. For Sasha, scaffolding techniques could be used in English to help her gain the skills she's lacking. This could include the teacher demonstrating tasks step by step before having her do them on her own, using think alouds to walk her through the thought processes, especially for reading and writing tasks, and giving her hints or cues to a question so she can try and figure out the answer herself. In English, she would also likely benefit from a significant amount of support from a tutor or extra instructional time from the teacher. Another factor is that it is important to make sure that it is the steps of her work that are the focus, not necessarily the end product. Anytime she's given work, there should be a focus placed on having her demonstrate the steps in her work, and breaking down assignments into smaller, shorter assignments using steps and processes could also be beneficial. Vygotsky's theory was focused on the social nature of learning, and he believed cognitive development was a social process where knowledge is constructed, which means collaborative learning activities that allow students to learn to and from each other fall within his theory. He also believes that children learn from more knowledgeable others. So for Sasha, this means that she could be paired with a peer who is excelling and can help her by providing her with the interaction she needs for learning, and her peers would be able to give her support and offer encouragement. She would also be more engaged by participating in the social activity by working with peers. Vygotsky's theory believes cultural tools affect development. It's important to consider the tools being used. Relating ideas to Sasha's personal experiences and interests can make learning more meaningful and help to engage her. We want to take in these cultural tools when we do that. In English, this could include finding ways to incorporate her love for gymnastics. It could also include topics such as separation, divorce, change, family. Integrating the cultural tool of technology in the form of educational apps and interactive ebooks or online writing tools would help Sasha by allowing her to connect her familiarity of technology with new information she's learning. They can also provide support for reading and writing tasks in the use of audiobooks, videos, and visual aids. Vygotsky's theory believes that learning is contextual and that students learn best when they can relate new information to their existing knowledge and experiences. Making connections between classroom learning and real-life situations helps students see the importance of their learning and use it in meaningful ways. For Sasha, in English, it would be important for her teacher to activate her existing knowledge before teaching a new topic. An example would be to use a real-life analogy of something that Sasha is already familiar with, as a way to explain a new or difficult concept. Sasha needs her learning to be meaningful in English, and she needs to be able to see that it has a purpose. English concepts can be the basis for projects that include hands-on activities that have real-world application. An example would be having her write a persuasive writing assignment, as it would be a letter to the school board, for example, about a policy she disagrees with. She would also benefit from creative writing activities because they could be used to let Sasha write about topics that she is interested in. Activities such as role-playing, storytelling, and debates would be able to bring text to life for Sasha and enable her to learn concepts she struggles with. They would also promote her engagement in learning and improve the overall interest in learning within her English class. How can a biblical worldview be applied to Piaget and Vygotsky's theories? Applying a biblical worldview to Piaget. According to Piaget's theory of cognitive development, the early stages of development that children go through include active exploration and interaction with their environment, which prepare them for the next stage. Each stage lays the foundation for the stage afterward. Each stage has own characteristics and developmental milestones and promotes using appropriate learning activities depending on the stage of development. His theory includes the idea that knowledge is constructed by children through interaction and exploration. The Bible supports these ideas of Piaget's with scriptures, especially Proverbs 22:6, which says, "Start children off on the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it." This scripture emphasizes the importance of starting off on the right path, indicating early experiences are important for shaping later cognitive development. It also actively encourages educators and parents to guide and support children to help them grow, just as Piaget's theory believes that adults and peers promote development through interactions. Applying a biblical worldview to Vygotsky. Vygotsky's sociocultural theory of cognitive development is based on the belief that learning is not based on universal elements such as biological development. Rather, it is varied and changes depending on the social and cultural context in which learning occurs. Knowledge can be given, according to his theory, and children receive their knowledge from others who are more knowledgeable. There's also a stressed importance of parent-child interactions for cognitive development. The scriptures corroborate Vygotsky's theory in that the Bible tells us that social and cultural relationships help shape our development, that knowledge is given, that knowledge is passed on through cultural knowledge and traditions, that children need to be guided in their learning, and that language is an important tool for both teaching and learning. For the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth comes knowledge and understanding, Proverbs 2:6. This scripture quote has two very specific ways that it relates to Vygotsky's theory. The first is that just as the Lord is able to give wisdom to his children, to us, we give knowledge to our children. Another important part of the scripture is that when the Lord gives wisdom, knowledge is coming from his mouth. It's saying that the Lord spoke the knowledge unto us, or that language is how knowledge is given, and it emphasizes the importance of language as its role in cognitive development. And that goes right along with Vygotsky's belief that language plays a very critical role in cognitive development. Summary. After going through our presentation, we've learned that Piaget and Vygotsky had a lot of differences, but they also share similarities that have pretty important educational implications. They both take the constructivist approach in that children create their knowledge and understanding of the world. They just differ in how they think children do that, basically. They are the same in that social interactions play a role in cognitive development, the key difference being the purpose of those roles or the important players within those roles. They both see language as having a role in cognitive development. They just differ in what they believe its purposes and importance is. And both theories have faced all sorts of criticism. but it is incredibly important as educators to remember that they both have beneficial ideas and insight that can effectively guide instructional methods and practices. These are the references. I hope you enjoyed my presentation. Thank you.